Okay, so I got to stand in front of that. Just in the general area, that screen will be shared here. So let me bring it over that way. So that'll be kind of the area to
Stand right here.
yeah, just kind of to the right.
Use the microphone you want.
Yeah.
This thing actually works.
Yeah.
Is this thing
buried under this place.
One, two.
I think I got 2 mics.
All right, everybody, we got a lot to cover, so I don't know if you can hear me or not. You want regular voice or does this even make a difference? Huh? Just talk. Like this? Okay, I'm gonna lick it. All right. Hey, I'm gonna, real quick, I'm gonna give you 2 phone numbers. This phone number is 208-807. This is if you're a farmer. 807-1161. This is for Mike Huff. He's with Bonanza Beans. We have a really good working relationship with him, and so he's got some attractive contracts. So if you're looking into growing some extra beans for extra money or whatever, I would definitely reach out to Mike. I also want to give you a phone number of Becky. She's our fundraiser manager, 208-870-1911. I also, I appreciate the law enforcement being here. You know, this has been quite a journey, and we're all learning together. And what happened, and Maddie was involved, but we've been lobbying for 3 years to get where we are today. And the first year had it also a lot to do with politics. You know, some representative doesn't like the other representative hosting a bill, and they would kill it out of spite, the way it looked like to me. But so anyway, we had Brandon from Farm Bureau had to be neutral party, and he hosted the bill, and we brought the House, the Senate, and law enforcement into this room, and we had a nice education. That's a bad idea. That'll keep going off if I don't. So anyway, so what was so interesting about it was when everybody got educated and understood what hemp grain was, that this had, you know, 30 to 45% protein and had 9 amino acids, omega-3s and 6s, and met everybody's nutritional value. And that this was a grain that grows like wheat, and then you harvest it, take that fiber, build a building with it, take that grain, dehull it, and turn it into a highly superfood. It just fit us in our nutrition because we have all these healthy products, and it just fit. And so when we got the law enforcement to realize that no one's going to grow marijuana in it because you're an idiot if you do, and the pollen is going to devalue it, and it travels up to 9 to 12 miles. So if anybody's growing weed in a cornfield, it's going to make it totally worthless. So that's kind of the history. Maddie testified in front of the House and Senate, so did I. And so that's why we're here today, and that's why we wanted to have the meeting here. And so we didn't expect, 25 people, and we didn't expect this big of a turnout, to be honest with you. And so we're really happy everybody's here. And I guess I'll let Paige start the video.
And then I gotta share to the new. Thank you.
They didn't have celiacs, they no preservatives in their food. And, you know, we are just trending behind Europe by 20 years. And so I had such a great eating experience and saw so many more healthier people than when I got back. You know, we got to start changing the way we do our food here. We got to be cleaner, less preservatives, more natural. And, you know, we're huge on the soil biology. You know, Kurt does a lot of cover cropping, and so do I. And so we're big on soil health.
So yes, Tim and I got connected. I bought another farm in 2012, and it was actually it would qualify for organics. So I wasn't real sure how to do it. So I had to call cousin Tim. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'll come over and help you." So he helped me fill all the paperwork out and kind of mentored me through that process. And then we teamed up again in 2017, really looking at starting our own processing handling facility. So we traveled around, looked at some other ones, and we bought some property and we went for it.
So we ended up with the Pillsbury plant, Buell. They couldn't compete with the Japanese market, closed it down. And so we went in and bought the plant. And so now we are 8 miles from the field to the cleaner, to the packaging, and from there straight to the DCs, where all these other companies have to handle 4 or 5 times trucking across country. We're able to do it right in our back door. And our efficiency makes us better. And the way we grow our product is biologically, it's based around the soil health first, because without the healthy soil, you can't have a healthy seed. And we are what we eat. So it all started from the soil, worked its way up, and you know, chemical-free, organic, non-GMO. That's what we're about.
Okay, cool. Oh, sweet.
We get the lights back on. Oh, there's more. There's more. Yeah, oh, sorry. So excited.
To the adventurer, the explorer, seeker, and doer, the weekend warrior, the passionate and dedicated who seize every moment they can. To all of you, we say, never change. Thousand Springs Milk. Healthy people, healthy future.
I'm just gonna talk about the food and then I'll pass on to you. Thank you, guys. Anyway, what I want to talk about is what we do. So we have installed a European flour mill that they use over in France. It's an old style technology, but it keeps all the nutrients in the grain, the fiber, the endosperm, and all the nutrients, and we're packing that and making that into a flour. So on that side of the Rio, we call it, we're doing our flour over there. And on this side, we're installing gluten-free flour mill. Well, we'll be doing all kinds of gluten-free because there's so many people with celiac disease and some problems. And that's where the hemp flour fits in for us. Hemp flour has that 50% protein. In Europe, they make hemp bread with it. We'll be able to make bread. You got the workout shakes, and we've got a really amazing meal replacement bar that meets all your nutrient requirements. And anyway, it's something that MREs can have, sports, kids, and smoke jumpers and stuff like that. So we're really looking forward to that product. So with all these healthy products, beans, rice, oatmeal, cereals, grains, and the stuff that we've added this product line, we're going to be adding more products. And so we're hoping to have about 50 products that we can put on our e-commerce. We came up with a model that we're really excited about. And this model builds wealth in communities. So instead of giving the money to the Jeff Bezos and going, wasting it there, the money that we give him goes to the kids. So it's easy for a sports team of 20 kids to raise $18,000. And we also working with some clients. We got a man in Bozeman. His code is MT100. So you have people, they say, okay, I want to support it. I want this product. I want my money to go to him because he's working with traumatized veterans and women and, abuse situations and healing them and having great luck. And we're going to raise him about $100,000. And so when people want our food, and so we're going to be able to deliver right straight to the door. And then all kids have to do is text, say, hey, this is our cause. This is what we want to do. You text your code. You call Becky, that phone number I gave you. She gets you a code, and then then that money drips into your account monthly and never stops. So once you get people auto reordering, then that money just drips monthly, nonstop, year in and year out. And it's easy for a sports team to make 18, 20,000. And we got a Christian charter school that needs $200,000 for a roof. It's not going to be that hard. So if you guys have anybody that's interested in that kind of a situation where you're giving the wealth back to the community instead of the big corporations, I think this model is everybody wins. And so we're excited for it. I think it's going to be a winner. And so if you can spread the word, that'd be great. Other than that, I think I'll turn it over to.
Real quick, because I just wanted to tell everyone, inside of the template, you see there's a card with all the fundraisers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a fundraiser card in there with our phone number. You can scan it. Just go to our website, Thousand Springs Mill, click on it, go to fundraiser and get set up. And so anyway, we're looking forward to it. Other than that, I don't have a lot to share. And so I'm going to let Morgan take over. She's from Great Falls, Montana, actually Fort Benton. They built an unbelievable facility that I can't believe. So here she goes.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Morgan Sweets. I am one of the co-founders of a company called Hemp. We're located in Fort Benton, Montana, and we had the luxury in Montana to have hemp going since 2014. So I'm here to share some war stories with you guys and hopefully encourage you about the great future that Idaho has in hemp. So first, show of hands, how many producers do we have in the room? How many producers do we have in the room or growers? And who just showed up because they want to know what this crazy hemp thing is? And anyone else? Am I missing people that are interested in building materials? Are we interested in food? Okay, we got a good eclectic group here today. So you're gonna now my presentation.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Okay,
Working on it.
that's okay. Well, I'll take a little bit of time while Maddie's getting our presentation up. So like I mentioned, Montana has been growing hemp since 2014, when the federal language in the Farm Bill allowed us to have a pilot program. And so my dad found himself in Montana at that time, looking into hemp for research purposes. And we had an old oil refinery site that he purchased, and there's a lot of contaminated soils, and hemp actually has a great characteristic where it's good at uptaking heavy metals, hydrocarbons, things like that. So he got involved in it actually in like 2012. And then when the pilot program came along, he ended up being the first license holder in Montana. And so it kind of grew from there, and he was working with a small group of producers around the area. And it didn't take long to figure out that, you know, you're only going to grow so much until someone can process it and buy it from you. And so that's where the idea came, that we really needed to invest in some processing facilities. So my life prior to hemp, I worked for a company called ADM, was an engineer for them, and did a lot of project management and construction work. And so when he finally convinced me to look into this crazy hemp project that he was working on, I was like, well, I don't know. Oh my God. There we go. All right, we good? Yeah. Should I start over? Raise hands again? Okay. So when Dad finally convinced me that we needed to do this hemp thing, we're not working video? Oh, okay. Do you want me to just get it really quick? Okay, sorry. All right. Anything done right, you just do it yourself, right? No offense, Maddie. I'm just kidding. All righty. So this is a farm in Montana. Next slide. If you guys can't see anything too, we will distribute this presentation for you guys so you can take a look in more detail.
I guess you're right. How do you go next?
The arrow.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, nope. Yeah. All righty, we'll get it on there. No one's in a hurry, right? So we're IND Hemp. I'll just skip right to our slide now. So we are a family-owned business. That's my dad, my stepmom, and I. And we are a mission-driven company. And we really like to start out with this because this is what we were founded on. Like I said, we started back in 2014 and really didn't get going until a few years later. But it's always been about mission for us. And we wanted to create more value in the rural communities that we lived in. We wanted to provide more rotation crops for growers to let you guys be more diversified. And so we weren't hempsters to begin with. It's our word we like to use, but it definitely fit all the checks that we needed and we wanted to do. And so hemp is a vehicle that we like to participate in to bring change and value to our communities, to our employees, to the healthy, nutritious diets we have and the sustainable building materials we're going to talk about. You know, hemp checks all those boxes. So we're really excited to share more with you guys about that. Next slide. So kind of like I was talking about, our company timeline, 2018 is when Dad finally convinced me to jump ship, and the Farm Bill actually didn't pass until December of 2018. And so in 2019, we started looking at equipment and locations, and then we selected that and started installation in 2019. And that was our first year that we contracted acres. And similar to you guys, everyone was really excited about hemp. And so seemed like it was nothing at all, and we had 10,000 acres contracted. Similarly, at that time, a lot of cannabinoid companies also were on the scene in Montana and also contracted a bunch of acres, but we are not those guys. In 2020, in 2020, we commissioned our oilseed facility. And right when we turned on is about when COVID shut the whole country down, the whole world down, actually. And so we tried to pivot a little bit. We shut down for a couple of months and we installed more equipment. We tried to just be, as optimistic as possible and made some improvements. And that's really when we started down the endeavor of what does it take to do fiber processing as well. So 2021 is when we started construction of our fiber facility, and we contracted about 5,000 acres, with about 1,000 acres of fiber purpose grown crops. And then 2022, this coming year, we'd like to contract about 5,000 acres of grain and about 3,000 acres of fiber. So next slide. So we have an industrial hemp campus in Fort Benton, and I like to just share kind of the vision. This is obviously a rendering. These buildings do exist, this one, and the one up in the corner there. And you're just going to see a video a little bit later about in the inside of those buildings. But the hope is, this is really the first of its kind in the United States. Canada has definitely had a few years ahead of us on the grain side of things. There is some fiber processing as well up there, but really this is the first of the kind for North America to have, both grain and fiber processing located together, utilizing both sides of the plant. And we're really excited to partner with companies like Hemp and 1,000 Springs and hopefully continue to grow that campus. So you might be wondering, okay, what does I&D Hemp do, right? Where are we in this supply chain? And so when you look at kind of this great graphics of supply chain, we try to focus on these first 4 steps. And it starts with you guys, the producers, at least who raise their hands. It really starts with nurturing that relationship. We go and get the variety that we want you to grow. We work on that, that long-term relationship of identifying which fields work, what your current operation can handle. How do we just fit right into what your existing infrastructure is? From there, we assist with harvest. Like I said, Ben Bremlow is going to be speaking here shortly. He's our lead agronomist, and he's with you every step of the way. Even if I tell him to turn off his phone and take time for his family, he will answer your calls. And then from there, when we get the product, whether it's the grain coming off of, or the seed coming off the grain fields, or the straw coming off either of those fields, we go through the primary processing step. So hemp has had a little bit of a slow start here in the US because there's very few facilities who can do that first processing step. So there's a lot of people interested. You guys are one of them. There's a lot of people interested in growing it. There's a lot of people interested in consuming it or using it, but there's not very many people converting it from a raw material into a usable ingredient. And that's where I&D Hemp fits in. So our last part of the supply chain is getting it into a format that the Maddies of the world and the Tims of the world can go and make some great products out of. So really quick, fiber processing. So when we harvest either the residual straw off of your grain field or a fiber purpose grown crop, we will go through a process called decortication. And all that is there's 2 parts of the stalk. There's the outer kind of core or bark-like part of the stem that we call the fiber, the bast fiber. And then the inner woody core is called hurd. And so those 2 constituents is the whole process of separating them from themselves. So unfortunately, people who want bast fiber don't want any hurd in there, and people who want hurd don't want any bast fiber in there. Next slide. And then similarly on the grain side, we convert the seed that we harvest, we clean it, and then it goes to either 2 things. We make oil out of it, and so we run it through a cold press expeller, and we get a protein powder out of it, either 50 or 30% protein, or we'll remove the shell and we get a hemp heart out of that. So these are all really great nutritious foods, kind of like Tim talked about. It has all 21 essential amino acids. It has a fantastic fatty acid profile. So who in here takes a fish oil supplement? No one cares about their heart? All right. So apparently there's people who take fish oil supplements for this thing called omega-3. And hemp has a fantastic profile of these omegas, omega-3, 6, and 9. And so we're talking anti-inflammatory characteristics, immune, brain health, a lot of fantastic things. So hemp is really unique. It's one of the only plants that has that really that unique profile. And so we see benefits on the equine side, on the human side. A lot of people are excited about hemp, including Tim. So. And then a little bit of where you might see our products and some of our great partners. Can't say enough about Thousand Springs and Hempitecture. We're just so excited to continue this relationship in this region. We have relationships that we're building all over the country though. Some of the products you might see, there's a customer of ours that's making a meat analog burger from our hemp seeds and hemp heart. We have our own consumer facing brand called Hemptana for an equine line. We have a Queen of Hearts that does a salad dressing line. She actually uses our protein and our oil. It's a fantastic superfood dressing. But you'll also see our products in car parts and animal bedding, things not so flashy. The idea is hopefully we can really make sustainable changes in these products, not because you're buying something because hemp's all over the label, but because you don't even know you're buying hemp, right? It's in the products, you're enjoying the great benefits of it, or you're buying a car with a hemp panel and you don't even know it. So that's where we hope hemp will go. And then I want to share a quick video with you because we do a lot of advocacy, kind of what Tim was talking about, the growing pains you guys have here in Idaho. We have had similar growing pains all over the country. So we worked with a group this past year. We put together a video for the president to say, hey, look at us over here. But I like to also show it because it does give you some insight and visuals into our facility. So, hello, President Biden. My name is Morgan Elliott, and I'm one of the co-founders of our family-run industrial hemp company, IND Hemp. In 2018, my dad, Ken Elliott, his wife, Julie, and I launched ourselves into the industrial hemp industry, focusing on what our industry desperately needed, processing. We're located here in Fort Benton, Montana, which has a long, rich history of firsts. As a famous stopping point on the Lewis and Clark Trail, this is the birthplace of Montana, and now it is the birthplace of an industry with the first true scalable industrial hemp campus. We are food, feed, and fiber. What started out just a couple years ago of just my family has grown into a family of over 30 employees, all who are motivated and passionate about making lasting change in the communities that we live in, the soil that we grow in, and the nutritious products that we offer. You have heard and will continue to hear about the amazing things that this crop can do, and your administration can support an industry that is truly sustainable, regenerative, innovative, and dynamic. We take our campus here as an example, which at full-scale production will employ over 75 employees, and similar centers come online, we can see some substantial impact. If in the next 5 years, the grain and fiber industry grows to 8 million acres, that could easily translate to over 70,000 jobs and $12 billion in market share. That's not including the farms, the ranches, and the customers that see such great impact from this wonderful crop. We know those numbers may not be staggering, but in a community like Fort Benton with less than 1,500 people in population, 70 jobs is life-changing. This town, like so many other rural communities across this country, has been on a steady decline. Fewer and fewer farmers, smaller and smaller class sizes, local businesses struggling to stay afloat. We know that we're not the only solution, but we can say from personal experience that we've seen a boost in energy and hope where we need it most, with the jobs, in the neighborhoods, and with the American family. Hemp needs a supportive and progressive administration. It needs well-funded research, fair regulations, and time to develop. But we know with a little bit of help and invest in the right technology, hemp has roots to change a nation, if not the world. We call it the goodness of hemp. Thanks, Fanny. Next slide. Oh, hello. All right. So hopefully you guys, we have a few more clips of the fields and the agronomy. So if any of you guys got excited about the tractor running through the field, we got more of that coming. So just hold on. But I kind of like to start off our grower meetings to talk about what we are and what we are not. You guys are in a little bit more of a unique situation here. You haven't gone through the CBD bus that a lot of other states have. So it may not be resonating as well as a dozen other states, but I do lead out that we're not a cannabinoid company. We don't harvest the flower. We're looking for grain and for fiber. So this is a really unique crop. The cannabis plant has a lot of opportunities, but it's important to get that clear distinction because, you know, from law enforcement, understanding like the visual key points about this to the harvested material, you know, what is our risk for THC? What do we need to be concerned about? And so, you know, it's a constant job for our industry to educate people in a way that they feel comfortable and they feel confident in the products and the fields that they're growing. So not a CBD company. We are real. We have real finances, established track records, and contracts. That was another thing that unfortunately people experienced in the last few years is people put contracts together with them. And then when harvest came around, these companies disappeared and ghosted them. And a lot of farmers ended up with a lot of material and out a lot of money. So unfortunate, but we're coming out of that. We plant a dioecious crop. So that means we have male and female plants. So if you see in that field, you kind of see two different colored plants in there. The female plants will have the flower on them. And then we actually need the male plants. So they're the yellowy looking taller ones that have the pollen on them. We actually need those plants so the flower will get pollinated. So in marijuana grow operations or cannabinoid where you're going for flower, you don't want a male plant. So when Tim talked about you're going to get pollinated, that's like, a CBD grower's worst nightmare, right? They don't want any seed, they want the flower. And so our fields for law enforcement, you walk up into a field that looks like this, you should know instantly what they're growing. It's not CBD, it's not marijuana. And another thing is we're committed to the industry. We're committed to the farmer. Remind everyone, this is a marathon, not a sprint. This is a commodity crop that really was grown here historically in the US and has amazing benefits and opportunity for growers. And it doesn't happen in our lifetime where a new crop like this is ever going to come up and have such great potential. And so I tell people, pace yourself, right? There's a lot of learning curves that we have to do. It may not be a win your first year. A lot of things, the first time you try them aren't super successful, but hang in there with us, hang in with this crop. It has so much potential and value and is going to, I think it has a bright future here in Idaho. So just remember, this is a marathon. And then why hemp? So we are here today. A big part of our, we're so excited to come talk to you guys is we want to start growing a grower network of producers in this region. We don't necessarily want to pop up and have 100,000 acres in Idaho, but let's start small. Let's do 40, 50 acres at a time together. And maybe we can get up to 1,000 acres here in the region this year. But every year we need to learn something. And it's a lot easier to learn when you actually have things at the field than when you're just looking across the border of Montana and seeing what those growers are doing. So there's some really great things that hemp can do for your operation if you're a producer. It's a great rotation crop. It complements your existing infrastructure. So who has an air drill? Okay, anyone got a baler? Anyone got a combine? Okay, you can grow hemp. So there's a lot of things that this should just be a plug and play situation. There are some nuances and we'll work through that with you, but more or less this should be a good fit. It is a high nitrogen user, but similar to pulses with high value N, you're going to see some of that return come back to the soil. So don't get nervous. A lot of farmers, they see all that green and they go, oh shit, right? So don't worry, a lot of it goes back in there. It does have a really complex and unique root structure. So almost every producer I've talked to, the year that they follow their hemp is their best producing year, whether it's barley or wheat or alfalfa, they see a benefit from what happened in that field with the hemp. So we're collecting more and more data of what's actually going on there. But you hear Tim talk about it, the soil health is where we have to start. And hemp is a really great vehicle to do that. And then who has weeds out here? Okay, so because we grow such a dense stand and it is a weed, right? When you talk about marijuana, we think of weed. Well, there's a reason those words come to mind because this plant will outcompete almost any other weed that's out there. If you have good soil contact, you get it in with right moisture, you have good seeding depth, I can promise you almost that you're always going to compete the weeds. And so we grew this past year was our first year of really doing fiber purpose grown acres in Montana. And we had guys in like the Fairfield Bench area that had wild oats and pigweed and, a huge laundry list of what they wanted to get out. And they were all thoroughly impressed with the stand and the competition. I'm not saying it's going to completely cure you of your weed problem, but you can, if you're converting from conventional to organic production, this is a great field to work on. And like I said, it's going to be impressive when you see this field up and running. So we are going to switch to a agronomy focused slide. So Maddie is also going to present this afternoon or a little bit later. So those of you who didn't come for the farmer side of the presentation, just hang in there. But we really do want to share with you guys more of the details of what it takes to grow this, because like I said, we want a network of growers in this region. We want you to feel like you have confidence in who IND Hemp is as the people that we are going to stand by you. We're going to help educate you. If you have a failure, I have a failure. So we're gonna do this together. And so we're gonna spend a little bit more time on that specifically. So thank you guys.
We'll have the privilege to hear more from Morgan in a bit, so, yeah. So my name is Ben Brimlow. I'm the agronomist with IND Hemp. I've been working with the company 2 years now, based out of Fort Benton, Montana, originally from Eastern Washington, Walla Walla area. Actually, my great-great-grandparents settled here in Idaho back in the late 1800s, early 1900s in the Clearwater up in Orfino. So got a little bit of background to the state. Pretty excited to be here. You know, hemp, before we jump into this, the agronomics part is, I wanted to share a kind of funny story. My kids go to a little rural school in Fort Bend, Montana, and 4 kids in the whole public school. And one time the teacher had a question about, you know, what your kids mentioned they like to eat hemp for breakfast in the morning. What's going on here? And turns out my 5-year-old just loves hemp hearts on his oatmeal, and that's all he wants. And if I don't put it on there, he puts it on there. So there's some, you know, I try and remind people what we work with is the Thomas Jefferson hemp. You know, there's the Bob Marley hemp out there, but that's it has its place, but we're Thomas Jefferson hemp. So what we're going to talk about, you know, 2 types of hemp. There are 3 types of industrial hemp, right? Morgan had talked about earlier the CBD side, that's cannabinoids. It's more like a horticultural crop. The other 2 are fiber and grain. These are 2 different production systems, but they fit our production systems here in Idaho and around the US. So first we're going to jump into the fiber side. If you have any questions, raise your hand. And then we'll jump into the grain side. And I think we have 10 minutes afterwards to take questions. So you can either stop me now or stop me later with questions. And if I could have some help on time, because I know we're, okay. Alrighty. So fiber hemp, this is what I would consider the true industrial hemp. This is what canvas used to be made out of when the ships were sailing the oceans. That canvas was made out of cannabis, right? That's what the first pairs of Levi Strauss jeans were made out of. In production, it's similar to a forage crop. So if anybody's grown sorghum or, of course, even hay type production system, you're looking to grow a massive biomass crop. That's how you get paid. You're just growing biomass. You're not looking for flowers. You're not looking for buds. You're looking for stock material. The best, of course, is under irrigation. Up in Montana, we're a lot of dry land production. We're working with 5 to 10 inches annual rainfall. We're doing dry land. Of course, I have seen 8-foot tall fiber hemp on dry land, but you guys down here with that irrigation and the heat units can, I'm expecting 15 to 20 foot tall crop. So your density's pretty high, and like Morgan had mentioned, it chokes out weeds. This field here behind us was in Fairfield, Montana this last year. The weeds came up, they turned white, and they fell over, and they never went to seed. It gets so dark in that canopy that it's truly a jungle. Anyways, we'll move on to the next slide. So production details for fiber hemp. You're wanting to plant between mid-April and May. You can plant into June, but the earlier you plant, the earlier that crop has time to get established and build biomass. We are looking at 800,000 to 1 million plants per acre. That's around, well, someone could, 30 plants per square foot. It's pretty high density. We're looking at narrow row spacing. If you don't want to plant with your drill, you can even broadcast. We've had a lot of success with, you know, till up your ground, create a nice even seed bed, broadcast, roll it in, or turn the water on, and you can have a pretty impressive stand. For nitrogen, we're looking at 80 to 100 units of nitrogen. I'm sure that's, you know, that's not too bad when you're looking at corn or potatoes. Typical 15 to 25 pounds phos, and water. That's the most important. You can see here that root system is a tap root system, but it also has, I call it a hybrid root system, where the crown is up top, it sends out a massive fibrous root system on the top 6 inches, but a primary tap root that can go down pretty much as long as that stalk is. Of course, here in Montana, I'm here in Idaho, our soils, we hit some volcanic rock underneath, and it'll probably just hit that, but it'll use your water very efficiently.
Is there anything you can do with that root?
So we don't harvest the root at this point, but it's extremely valuable for soil stability.
Okay.
I mean, we deal with a lot of blowing sand out here, right? Sometimes it closes the highway down. We see the same thing in Montana.
Yeah.
That root system holds soil extremely well.
How long does that root, last in the ground? Because like with potatoes, they don't want stuff like that coming over the,
Mhm.
you know. either.
We haven't seen potatoes behind hemp yet.
Okay.
And the majority of our crops that we've seen are direct seeded behind it, and we have no issues with that root in the ground. But that's a good question, and that's something we may find out this season. Yeah. The above biomass would last for years. If you just cut that crop down and left it out there, it's baling twine. But anything in the soil, those microbes, if you have a healthy soil microbial population, they will degrade anything that comes in. As far as pests go, the only pest we've seen in this hemp crop anywhere is grasshoppers. If you're under irrigation, they don't like it though. When you go up to Montana, you're growing organic, boy, can they clean house. You know, I don't wish anything to go extinct, but if there's one thing I had to choose, it'd be grasshoppers, and I'd choose it right off the bat. We'd be happy if we never saw those again. So other pests can be weeds if you get poor establishment, but if you get establishment, that crop will smother out any weeds. Typical yields we see between 2 and 4 tons, sometimes 5 tons an acre. As we improve our production systems, we'll be exceeding that. European crops, they've seen up to 7 ton an acre on a single cutting, which is pretty impressive. Yeah.
So as far as pest and weed control, I mean, is this all an organic setup, or, I mean, what tools do we have to deal with that?
Good question. So the question is, as far as pest control, if there is a pest, is this all organic? No, it's not organic. We work with organic producers and we work with conventional producers. The fiber itself is a conventional crop. So we support, this is what I'm going to say about that. Take action to protect your crop. There is nothing currently labeled for industrial hemp as far as herbicides and pesticides. In Canada it is. So you can apply Assure 2, you can apply clethodim, you can apply Sonalan as a pre-plant, pre-emerge. But at this point, we don't have any labeled chemistries, but we do know which chemistries work.
So on the dry land versus the irrigated, you're talking about that dry land stuff, so 8 foot and irrigated, you get up to 20. Can you cut it twice?
No, once you cut below that bottom node, it can't punch out another shoot. So we haven't seen that. That's something that we may see in the future, where you can come in, say, in July or August and cut it and then see a regrowth. We haven't tested it out yet. Up till now, European production and Chinese production has all been single crop. You cut it down, bale it up. But that's good thinking and something we could look into.
So the weather temperatures affected or not, or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So fiber hemp loves heat and it loves water. You miss one of those variables, if they don't add up, you got a more sluggish growth. So we have cooler temperatures up in Montana, but we have the irrigation, and it would prefer the Idaho environment where you hit June and you got 100-degree temperatures and turn that water on, and it loves both of it. Yeah.
So I'm going to be a buzzkill. We have a lot of slides to cover,
Yep.
and so your questions may be answered.
Okay.
You guys just hang in there, and we'll try to get through some more if that's okay.
Yep, and maybe we'll schedule another meeting and we'll come out to the farm and meet in person. Yep. All right, for harvesting this crop, you're planting it April, planting it May, it's growing all the way into August. That mid-August is when you want your cut date. We'd like to push it further into September, but we need what's called a retting stage where that stalk cures in the field. And that needs to be 4 to 6 weeks oftentimes to cure in the field. So we have to cut mid-August so we don't run into winter in the end of September. Up till now, the production method has been cutting with a sickle mower. Does anyone out here have a sickle mower on their field, on their farm? Alrighty. So that used to be the common way of mowing hay and cutting hay. And that's actually how you cut hemp fiber. That material is so tough, so strong, that the one reliable piece harvest equipment would be a sickle mower. It's kind of standalone 9-foot sickle mower like they did in 1940s. Once it's finished that curing process, sometimes we got to rake it to distribute that stock and allow it to cure evenly. Once it hits 15% moisture, you know what to do. Bale it up, set it aside. Next. All right, we're going to show a little bit of lessons from 2021. I guess the video is not here yet, but we had the privilege of New Holland out of Pennsylvania send out a prototype mower. They said we can do we are the hemp company. New Holland has kind of put themselves out as the equipment company, you know, beyond John Deere. So they sent out a mower, and we learned that it cut really good when it was dry as a bone in the field, but as soon as there's a little humidity, this is what happens. And I mean, they took a lot of different tools to try and get that off. It was a couple hours. So we learned that even the newest pieces of equipment, rotary mowers, can't work. We got to go back to the old school. So that's why I&D Hemp, we bought our own equipment. We're a processing company, but we bought our own equipment to make sure that farmers across our state and across our region, if their equipment or your equipment didn't do the job for the fiber, we can show up and we know it'll cut it. Next. So here's the equipment it takes to grow fiber hemp. Sickle mower. This is I think it's a Rouse 18-foot sickle mower, pull behind. Anybody who's got a 150 plus horsepower tractor can pull it. We come back and rake it. Does anyone run rotary rakes here in Idaho? Basket rakes or rotary rakes? Or I guess I see a lot of wheel rakes, right? Those are the most common. So wheel rakes are great in certain situations, but if those tines pick up that material, you can see what happens. When it's 20-foot or 15-foot stock, it could wrap it up and seize up, and your bearing would need to be replaced at that point. So rotary rakes do phenomenally. We don't see issues with it, do a great job. Lastly, baler. Most balers we see work is just about the operator. Your baler would most likely do the job. We decided to go out and buy a specialty baler, something that can handle corn stalks, for example. A little heavier duty, but like I said, most of our producers in Montana use the same baler they're using on their alfalfa. All right, next. One more. So here's just a fun video. I mean, we're in the middle of I guess February now. So for all of you farmers who are just have an itch to get out and just enjoy this little scenery of the New Holland mower in action. We did get it to successfully harvest 100 acres, and we do have some producers that use their own rotary mowers for cutting hemp fiber. It's very tricky, and that's one reason we've decided to have backup with a sickle mower. But you can see that that mower did a phenomenal job for that 100-acre pivot. Next. Here's another view of that mower running. And that crop there is 13 feet tall. Planted in middle of May. So if we would have planted middle of April, you can imagine another 5 feet.
Does that mower have a conditioner?
So this mower did not have the conditioner as it was mowing here. It started with a conditioner. New Holland sent their guys out. Torgerson's equipment, they supported, and we did everything. We opened that conditioner up, we tightened it down, we pulled it out. And so far it looks like with the conditioner and without the conditioner about the same. I think the conditioner may actually help feed that material through.
What about dry down for the winter?
Yep, it would help. Yep, it helps dry down in that retting period to speed up. Next. All right, here's a video of right along the Rocky Front in Fairfield. This is a fiber crop getting baled with an old Heston mower that was sitting in the shop for 9 years, or sitting in the garage for 9 years. So he pulled it out and cranked out a few bales, as you can see. And that, again, that's 13-foot tall material that's getting baled up, and square baler, round baler, we see both work. Thanks.
What if it gets rained on?
Perfect. Perfect. In fact, yeah, what if it gets rained on is a question. We actually want the two drivers for biological activity, which is retting. We want the biology to inoculate that stalk and partially digest that stalk. That stalk won't disappear, but there's a microscopic glue called pectins that hold that bast fiber to the herd. And those microbes chew that layer of glue that holds the bark to the stalk. We actually want that degradation to happen, so that by the time that bale is harvested and come to our plant, that material separates easily without much, without running it 2 or 3 times through the decortication line. All right, I'll pass it off to Morgan to talk about pricing. I know we got lots of questions and lots more to cover.
And we'll just go over this pretty quickly with you guys. We want this to work, right? You can't fail. You can't go bust on it. We need you to make money so that we can get you to grow again next year. So this is our terms for our Montana contracts. We haven't had conversations with guys over here. That's why we're here today. And hopefully we'll get some contacts and you guys can come and talk with us after. But I kind of did a little economic evaluation on the sides there. So Ben mentioned that we do provide some custom harvesting assistance. And so we do take a deduction off of our end product price with that. So there are also term sheets over here that you guys can come grab too if you're interested. But at the end of the day, the number you need to know, we're 8 cents a pound for retted material. And then if we do any of the harvesting, we get a 2 cents a pound reduction. And then we are going to have to throw a freight subsidy in there, especially when you guys are out here. So we want to work with you guys. These aren't going to be your end all be all numbers, but this is a good start. So take a look at what are your costs for other crops. What is it? All of us need a rotation crop. If you're growing potatoes, or you're growing alfalfa, we're all going to need a rotation crop. And so we know we have to be competitive with other crops that are there, and we're willing to work with you guys on that. But wanted to share that and just let you know that, our contracts, I've always changed them from year to year based on feedback that we get from growers. So if this doesn't work this year, let's talk about it and see what we can do next year. Because again, we need all of us to have a victory out of this. So.
All right. That's I guess contract information on fiber side. I think we're gonna move into grain now. Okay, what is grain hemp? Again, fiber hemp is a forage crop. You grow it for biomass, massive, big vegetative growth. Grain hemp is an oil seed. Has anyone in here raised an oil seed in the past? Canola, mustard, flax? Okay. Oil seeds are very popular up north in Canada. I consider Montana southern Alberta half the time because we got a Canadian flag in every square, and we got a little bit of Canadian accent coming over too. But oil seeds are very popular up north. So if I tell a grower, think of canola, immediately we know the approach, the nutrition, the chemistry, rotation wise, it fits perfectly in the canola rotation. It is an oil seed crop, like I mentioned. It is dioecious. So unlike all the other crops you grow, and Morgan kind of touched on this earlier, hemp is just like humans as far as there's male plants and there's female plants. There's some breeding to create monoecious varieties, and we're working on that, but currently they're separate. So here you can see on the left, a male flower. When you see that growing in the field, most people from the cannabis side they don't like to see that plant, but that produces the pollen to fertilize the female, and that's a seed right there growing in the flower. And that's what we're after. We're after the seed. It's a grain crop. It's an oil seed crop. This crop is raised with standard farming equipment. If you got a drill, if you can plant wheat, you can plant hemp. If you can combine wheat, you can combine hemp. If you can store and clean wheat, you can store and clean hemp. We typically see 20 to 60 bushel yield potential. It's as genetics improve, we'll improve that. The pricing though matches the acre though. So don't be scared if you see, 20 to 60 bushels, that's not much. Mustard is similar, where 15 to 30 is common for mustard. Dryland or irrigated, the majority of our acres have been dryland up to this point in Montana. 2021, I'm sure we all heard, was a massive drought. And that hurt a lot of producers, wheat producers especially. Grasshoppers moved in. And that's one reason we are focused more on the irrigated. Our irrigated production across Montana is phenomenal. And we said, you know, we need more of that. Where do we go? We know it's here here in Idaho. Okay, again, production requirements, you need a drill. If it works for you, it works for him. Combine harvester, you can either use a conventional combine harvester or you can use rotary combines. I recommend rotary combines. It does tend to move that material through a lot easier. It doesn't bunch up in the feeder house as bad. It's a good option. Case, John Deere, I've been in probably 40 different machines over the last couple of years, and they both do the job. Draper headers are preferred, right? Mac Dons on equipment is typically what we see. We do also see some success with stripper headers. So if you're just trying to pull the seed off, you just have to manage that residue after that crop, you know, after you combine it with a stripper header. Another important thing that we need to keep in our minds is a grain bin. Storage is very important. We can't just throw this into a pile or into a bin without aeration. It needs to have some type of aeration. We like to combine this at a high moisture, which means we got to bring that moisture down, as well as in the wintertime, we like to freeze that bin solid so that grain is stable going through the winter. It's kind of like refrigeration. Then also, I recommend having a grain cleaner, basic grain cleaner, just to pull off the leaf material, the flour material that might follow it. That's where the moisture really is in that leaf material. So very basic grain cleaner. And then baler. Yep, having access yourself or your farmer or your neighbor, somebody who has a baler to come up and windrow and bale those windrows. So, you know, one of the questions that comes up is where do we plant this, you know, this crop? We do want to avoid heavy clay soils, which I don't think anybody here farms clay soils, right? This is a sandy valley. This is why potatoes do so well. We do want to avoid high clay, poor draining soils. We want to avoid chemical carryover. Make sure to check your, you know, at least 2 years of chemistry applied. Make sure you're not following Spartan Charge and some other high residual chemistries. We want to choose well draining soils, high fertility, of course, and low or well distributed residue. And I think Idaho is a perfect fit for that. With that sandy soil irrigation, you're able to add the water as you see it needed. One question that came up is following alfalfa. And I should have touched this in the fiber side too, but a lot of folks who have talked to us have really asked, I want to take out alfalfa and put, you know, an alfalfa stands coming out of production. It's been 6-7 years. I want to put hemp into that. Yes, we have seen a lot of production follow alfalfa. If you're doing, of course, if it's a conventional variety of alfalfa, you can just spray it out with glyphosate. As soon as you get a little bit of growth in the spring, spray it out. If you're running a Roundup Ready variety of alfalfa, we can talk about how to hit that. But I've seen 2,4-D and dicamba in certain lower, you know, reduced rates do the job. All right. So like the fiber variety, we want to plant in the month of May is best. What our producers up north do is they plant their hemp last. So they plant everything first and they just come behind and plant hemp last. It doesn't need to get planted early. It's a late season, it likes the warmth. It likes very, very warm soils. It'll pop out of the ground in 4 days. Row spacing, we do like tighter row spacing. So 6 to 12 inch is good. The closer you are to 6, the better. Our population is lower. So this is a grain variety. We're looking at 200,000 to 300,000 plants. So a third the seeding rate of a fiber crop. If we plant too high population, we get a lot taller stand. The genetics are shorter, so you're not going to see 15-foot crop. You're going to see 5 to 6 foot tall crop. So your combine can handle it. Here we don't have to worry about seed depth really because you got irrigation, but we're looking at 1/2 inch to 1 inch seed depth. Nitrogen is going to be similar to a high yielding winter wheat crop. What we typically see is a 10-to-1 ratio. For every 10 pounds of yield, you need to have at least 1 pound of nitrogen. So if we're targeting a 2,000 pound yield, we want to have at least 200 units of nitrogen in that system. And that's including what's in your soil organic matter. That's including what's, you know, already in your soil. Phos is pretty important. So we do like to see 30 to 40 units of phos to give that vegetation a healthy it's a, major component of chlorophyll. So using sunlight efficiently. Sulfur is important as well. It's an oilseed crop, so we do want sulfur in that mix. And then micros are pretty important. I recommend a lot of our producers, and especially irrigated production, they put on micros through the pivot late in season as that seed is just forming. Zinc and boron, manganese, and then some biologicals if you have some of those. Next. Here's a view for anyone who wants to see some tractors rolling in the field. This is in a Hooterite colony there on the Front Range out of Augusta. But you can see it's a standard drill, air seeder. One thing you got to watch is your air pressure in that drill. Make sure your seeds aren't shattering on the manifolds where it distributes, but had a phenomenal stand come out of this drill. Next. 4 months later, you got this. This is what it looks like in the field. I apologize for the quality is kind of low, but you have 12 to 24 inch seed heads. It almost looks like a Dr. Seuss kind of plant. It's not bushy like you would recognize maybe with a CBD crop. This is a stalk and a seed head. And once your crop is starting to look like that, where it's starting to dry down on the outside, oftentimes we have a frost come through. You're ready to start thinking about combining it. Actually, you'll start combining it when it's green like this. Next. Okay, harvest timing. Who likes to harvest wheat at 18% moisture? Or kochia as it's going through your combine. So we like to harvest at the higher moisture. This crop can see some shatter. So by cutting it at a higher moisture, earlier, greener plant, we save a lot more seed. With that though, we have to plan on drying it down using aeration. Usually in Idaho here, we got plenty of heat in end of August, early September. So that's, we don't need any grain dryers. In fact, we don't use any supplemental heat to dry our grain up north. The greener, the better. So if your crop is greener, that fibrous material, which, people know is the strongest natural fiber on earth, will flow through that combine without catching. As you decrease that moisture, there's higher risk of wrapping and catching fire. We haven't seen any of that this last year across our grain production in Montana. This last year is pretty nice. No issues, no wrapping. It's just something to be aware of. And one reason we like to cut green. Again, it goes against conventional wisdom. Like I said, when you're cutting your wheat and there's a green kochia plant, you feel that going through the rotor, right? That rumble. For the hemp, that's ideal, is actually when it's green. So kind of a little different perspective there, how that works. It doesn't still rumble. Well, we'll see, right? You will cut at a lower speed because it is a lot more biomass going through, but you don't feel that strain on the rotor like you do.
What do you do with the stalk after you get the seed?
Yep. So ideally, you're going to be cutting 12 to 15 inches off the ground, or however much residue you need to hold soil. And then you're going to windrow that right out the combine. You're not going to chop it. It won't lose your chopper. So if you're running John Deere, lift that whole chopping element up, windrow it out. If you're running case, drop the knives out of that chopper, full speed, push that residue out, and then come back and bale that material once it's.
That materials for what? You guys?
We will. Yeah, we actually want that material as well. Even though this is a grain crop, we do buy the residual straw. It's not as high a grade of fiber, but it's enough for purposes like Hempitecture may use for their insulation. Or hempcrete or building materials. So one thing I didn't mention here is another option that we may see here in Idaho taken off is swathing first and then combining. If you don't have aeration in your bin or whatnot, and you need to get that dried down in the field, swathing is an excellent way to just terminate the stand, lay it down. Your stalks will still be green, but your seed will be dry enough to where it'll thresh out and out the back. We just have to watch that. Don't let it sit too long or it'll dry out too far. All right, next slide. So here's a picture of of course, a case machine running this last harvest. This crop was the first time this grower raised industrial hemp for grain, and it yielded around 1,600 pounds, which is very good for a first-time producer. Put it on his nominal ground, and it still did really well. Next. So grain handling and storage, we won't cover this too much, but it is important, again, like we mentioned, have a bin, have aeration. That's what we would like to see. If we don't have that, we're gonna have to readjust a little bit and swath, so you make sure that grain is dried before you put it in the bin. It is a raw food. So when it comes from your field to the table, it's a raw food. We don't have any kill steps. So it's important that we get that dried down so that mold and other microbes will not propagate. All right, next. Your question, residual straw. We covered that a little bit. We have the opportunity to buy that residual straw right out of the gate. You don't have to burn it. In Canada, they used to burn it, but now that the fiber industry is coming on board, we're harvesting that and putting it to use. You do not want to leave that in your field. That's one thing I would say. Some folks think, oh, I can chop it, I can spread it, I can distribute it. But the fact of the matter is that natural fiber is so tough, you've got to get it out of the field. And unfortunately, that fits our business model perfectly because we want to buy every bale we can get.
What will it yield?
We've seen yields, dry land, usually around 500 to 1,000 pounds an acre. Irrigated, we'll probably see a little more. So I'd estimate 700 to 1,200. Depends on how much residue you want to leave in the field as well, how much stock length you want to leave or stubble length. All right, Morgan's going to talk a little bit about the economics here and close out.
Thanks, Ben.
Sir, what about on irrigated? How many inches of water?
So we've seen, yeah. So the question is, how much water does this take? And this is actually a really good point. This crop is one reason we're wanting to push, essentially, we want to push cotton out because it is high in pesticides. It does require lots of water. Hemp uses significantly less moisture to create the biomass, both for the fiber and the grain. What we see is standard, what you need for a barley crop, a spring barley crop or a winter wheat crop. I'd say, 5-10 inches? Or do you even see more?
A little bit more than that, probably.
I guess in Idaho with your higher temperatures, you might need a little more, but it's nothing compared to corn or potatoes, correct? Because once that canopy is established, it actually creates this microclimate under that canopy, and the humidity is very high in there, and just really uses it well. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Good.
Can you put the fiber and grain next to each other?
Yeah, yep. You can plant fiber and grain next to each other. There's no concern at all about cross-pollination. And again, both these varieties will never test hot. So you don't have to worry about THC migrating, none of that. In Canada, they don't even test this variety because the THC is oftentimes not even tested. Also, if you do have CBD or something that growing next door, it can pollinate CBD crops, which means that can degrade their CBD concentration. But also if there is CBD that has high THC and it migrates to the grain hemp, there's no concern there because that grain is being harvested, it's being processed. It won't have issues with contamination.
And we will do a little Q&A section. Don't worry, Ben's not going away. He's not off here yet. So, but just for the contract again, same thing. This is what we're doing in Montana this year. The thing I'd like to point out is the straw, because it is lesser quality, has a different price than it did for the fiber purpose. 60 cents a pound for grain, conventional, $1.15 for organic. On irrigated acres, we should be seeing over 1,500 pounds to an acre production. Dry land, we are in pretty poor conditions in Montana. We are hoping to target somewhere between 700 and 1,000. This is a very new crop. So when we talk about, breeding and trying to get better genetics and varieties that produce better, we're years away from that, but there's a lot of people working on that. We're definitely intrigued and in part of that. So you guys it's again, the same thing where I kind of did an irrigated versus dry land. And you can see the production types there. So this is just an example. Don't go home and say, look, Mom, I can earn $12,000 on this or whatever you want to say. But if you guys want to talk to us, like we really would like to sit down on you guys know, every grower is a different situation, what you're competing with. There's been many times when we talk to growers and we say, well, we probably aren't the best fit for you, right? If it comes down to dollars and what you're trying to achieve, hopefully you're making your decision more than just what the bottom dollar is. You're looking at your 5-year rotation. You're looking at your soil health. So hopefully there's other target metrics that you're trying to achieve here. And we can talk to you about that and where we think hemp is a good fit for it. So do you mind going to the next slide? Thanks. That's our information. Do want to take a second because I kind of forget that you guys this is really new for you. And so THC, right, is a cannabinoid. It's an organic compound that you find in the flower. So it physically is not in the seed or the stalk. So when we talk about how we're going to work on policy and advocacy, I'm really trying to hit home to legislators and other policymakers that we should be concerned about the material that's coming off the field. If you're growing a fiber crop and you don't even have flower to harvest, why are you having to be regulated and managed the same as crops that are growing for flower? So unfortunately, we're not there yet. We are advocating for that. And you guys, every time you talk to somebody, if you do choose to grow with us, so many people will stop by your field and want a picture, right? And so that's an opportunity for you guys to share with them, like, hey, we don't need to worry about THC. Like, everyone thinks like some high schooler is going to come into my field and he's going to roll up a joint. Like, it's not what's going to happen.
Oh, it will happen, but
that's true.
it won't be the experience you're hoping for.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I really just try to advocate or to hit that home because you guys might still be uncomfortable with this craft, and that's okay, right? We all started there. We all had a previous life before hemp. And we've all learned and come familiar and more confident. We drank the Kool-Aid, right? We've spent millions of dollars to get infrastructure in Montana. We continue, this is a marathon. We will continue to spend millions of dollars. But hopefully you guys get to start to see it and you also become a little bit of a hempster yourself by recognizing the great value of the nutrition it has, of the materials that you can do. We all like, who wants that little green leaf and wants to have a sustainable future, right? These are all buzzwords that we like to be a part of. Well, you can be a part of that by growing hemp, by advocating for it, by choosing to buy products that have hemp in it. And so if you're nervous, if the one take home you get out of here today, for those of you who are new to industrial hemp, is the fear and maybe the stereotype that you came in here today, hopefully is gone. Hopefully you realize we're talking about a completely different crop. And you can feel very comfortable that if you come and buy product from Tim, he's not trying to get you high, he's trying to get you healthy. And if you get material from Maddie, like you can be a part of that story and following it from the field to the installation panel or wherever you put it. So you guys, that was just my soapbox. I feel like I needed to say that. So, you guys have agronomy questions or anything for the company? We did not do that good of a job, so please. Yeah.
What's your oil yield off your seed?
So there's about a third of the seed, 30% is of its oil. It takes about 44 pounds of seed to make 1 gallon of oil.
Thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, what do you guys know about plastics and
Yeah, I can speak very little to it. We have a great staff that we brought if you guys want to talk more questions about it. So the opportunity that people say hemp can be a replacement for plastic. Well, there's compounds that, we actually take the herd product and we'll mill it down to a really different sized fine particles. So like 3D printers they're using it they're making like a compound out of it. And so we do see that there are opportunities where hemp can replace petroleum-based products. But again, it's not like tomorrow we're going to pop out a hemp bag that's 100% hemp, right? It's more back to that concept of we should be making materials with hemp in it without even knowing there's hemp in it. 5-10% or something like that. So there's a huge vision there and a lot of people are really working on that. But it goes back to like, we're focused on that primary processing of getting you those materials. So these innovators and these pioneers in the industry who do want to save the world with hemp, we are all about it, but we got to get you to grow it first. So next question. Oh yeah, go ahead.
When you're going over the fiber production, you said the seed cost was $100 for the irrigated land and $50 for the dry land. What's the difference there? What's the cost more?
So the seed population, and this is, from what we've learned in Montana with dry land, if you have too many seeds out there, right, they can't compete with each other. They lose moisture. And so we actually cut our seeding rate for irrigated versus dry land. So that's the difference you see.
Could you seed for dry land and irrigate to cut costs? I mean, what's the?
So it goes back to like, if you have a denser population, like the width of that stalk is going to be bigger or smaller, right? Like if more seeds, smaller stalk, get that concept? And so because of the composition of the stalk, if you have big old chunks of like bamboo out there, it's going to be mostly herd material. Well, the more valuable product is that bark material, that straw, that stringy stuff that we call bast fiber. And so we like, when we're trying to target fiber production, we like really, thin stalks. So you have to have higher seed population to get that. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
So delivery point, does it have to go to Montana? All the seed?
I mean, you could leave it here, but I don't know who's
Well,
gonna do it.
how many miles is that from here?
540 miles.
We're out of Mountain Home, so that's another.
So that's where, like, let's talk about it, right? I can't promise you like what the steps are. Like you said, you have to make money, I have to make money. We gotta figure it out. So we do know that freight subsidy is a way for us to help that. For our growers in Montana, we do a 20 cents per pound per ton for fiber. We have contracted it with Washington and Oregon growers in the past, and we did have a freight subsidy in there for their green as well. We figured it out in kind of the final price.
So that was on the fiber. Is that the same for grain?
Nope. So that's tons fiber. That's where I said, we'll figure out the number. I know you're trying to get a number out of me, but we kind of got to work on that together. So. Yes, go ahead.
I think you said this, Ben, but how tall is the grain hemp versus the fiber hemp? And then some, we're weed scientists.
Yeah, excellent. Well,
so,
I'm super glad you're here.
yeah.
You're with University of Idaho, I suppose. Perfect.
So would the grain be less competitive? And I'm curious about CBD, how tall is that?
Yeah. So in our northern latitudes, we have longer day length. So fiber varieties have potential to reach up to 20 feet tall. In fact, this last year, a field in California, which doesn't have as long days in the summer as we do, they hit, I think it was 23 feet tall, broke the world record. So these genetics have potential, especially in our longer days, our heat and moisture, to hit that height. On the grain side, of course, just like our wheat, we like shorter crops in general. We can see certain fields that were planted early and high nutrition, reaching heights of 7 feet tall for grain even. I don't expect to see that in Idaho. That heat that we see in June will cause flowering to come on quicker. And so that plant will transfer out of vegetative growth to reproductive growth. So I'm expecting between 5 and 6 feet tall is usually what we're going to be seeing here in Idaho. Yeah.
Sorry. You said that the microclimate in there, nice and moist.
Yep.
Do you have issues with diseases because of that?
Surprisingly, okay, the question was about diseases in hemp, especially irrigated with that higher, moisture, higher humidity. We have not seen any diseases up to this point in hemp. The only pest, disease, or insect has been grasshoppers. We see bugs all over in it. We see honeybees all over in it, and they're eating each other. They're, reproducing. They're all in there, but nothing is really attacking the plant except for the grasshoppers and drought ears.
So, well, we're questioning it, we'll talk later,
Yeah.
but do you see the seed abort, like when it gets too hot? Things happen.
Yeah. So, like canola, for example, if you're planting canola and the temperature is too high, you can actually have, it'll abort those pods, it'll abort those seeds. We have not seen that in hemp yet, in grain hemp. What we have seen though is, since grain hemp or hemp in general is indeterminate, it grows till it can't. It grows until it runs out of water. It grows till it gets frosted out. It'll keep stacking seeds until you say it's done or the weather says it's done. Sometimes we do see seeds at the very end forming, but they don't fill the seed. And yes, we'll see little white seeds at the end, and those just blow out. But it's not like it wasn't from heat or anything. It was just because that crop,
Sorry, one more question. Do you see regrowth on the stalks at the end of the year if you get nice moisture in the fall?
Okay, regrowth after harvest. We do not see regrowth. We have seen where hail storms, move through, especially where we're at. We get phenomenal. That's one reason I love the Big Sky country and prairies. These storms going across, I love them, and they hurt too. And I know there's some fields out there in the way. But we've seen hailstorms essentially eradicate, take out 50% of our stand in grain hemp, and it'll punch out another stalk. As long as there's another growth node below that point of injury, it can punch out another stalk. And in fact, we've seen yields higher under hail fields than the neighboring field that had full population. Just phenomenal. It's almost like the hail made that crop mad and it came back and yielded out. I mean, a bin buster, phenomenal yields after hail. So that was kind of surprising.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Have you had any experience with USDA insurance programs on hemp? Any claims you had to do? Or?
So there is whole or full farm insurance available for it. And it is, your banks should bank with you with it. Insurance providers should provide it for you. It's federally legal. They should have no problem working with you on it. There is hail insurance for it as well. Unfortunately, there's not enough data out there, so the T values are really low. But we do have policy. And if anyone wants to grow, we have people who are eager to talk to you about being your provider. It's not me, promise.
So does anyone work with Rain and Hail, the insurance group Rain and Hail policies? So they do have hemp specific policies out there, but you have to have 1 year of production before they can insure that specific crop. There is all farm multi-peril insurance out there, but you do need 1 year of production. That's one reason I recommend producers, even in Montana, if you just want to test it, grow 50 acres, just to have that 1 year in, then the next year you have insurance that covers your crop more thoroughly.
So I know you guys are getting a little fidgety. Oh, another question? Yeah. Oh boy, get ready, guys.
Fiber production, maybe 5 tons of acres like that.
Yeah, so the range is pretty broad right now because we just don't have a lot of data points. So I think Ben said 2 to 4. We had 3 to 5 on the slide. He said in Europe we've had 7 tons. So that's the yield we're going for, right? And so we can't promise anything, but the more water, the more nutrition this plant will grow.
Yeah, we're looking at middle of August. Yeah. 4 to 6 weeks is our general time frame. Again, retting, the 2 parameters that affect retting speed is moisture and heat. So yes, yep. If it's dry like it typically is in August, we'll probably want to put some water down, cut either water before you cut or water right after you cut to get that microbial growth running again.
And retting is also one of those things that we're still learning how to do. And every year it's going to be different. And every region is going to be different. You guys have microclimates too. Like really that morning dew is when you see like kind of the best conditions for it. So some years maybe we can get it done in 2 to 3 weeks. Like you do have to flip it. That's what, with the rake, you do need to get that curing to happen evenly across the row. But this year, at least in Montana, like we have 0 snow coverage right now. So guys who were depending on that for a winter ret, we told them not to bale until mid-February to March. Well, there's no snow cover out there right now. So it's going to be dependent on the season. That's why we really want to work with you about like, what do you plan to follow in that field? Winter wheat isn't an option, right? So we have to look at what's before and what's after hemp and make the best decision of what it looks like. You have another one? Well, come find us after. So, but I really want to be respectful of everyone's time. I know there's some more people talking and it's probably time to at least stretch our legs or something. But you guys grab our contacts over there. We have a little sample kind of style on the table over there if you guys want to look at some of our products. And we're excited to be here. And so please feel free. These people over here, they are at your disposal. So bug them, bug us, whatever you need.
Okay, so come back in 5 minutes. We got another presentation coming up in 5 minutes.
Great job. Thanks, Ben. Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah. Albert, how are you? Good to see you. This is my first year person. So nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Maddie. Keith, nice to meet you. Excellent. Yes. Yeah. Give my card there. Yeah, Keith, I really appreciate it. After this, let's certainly connect.
for the Idaho State Department of Agriculture. She is joining us today via Zoom. So if you guys do have questions for Chanel, she should be able to answer those for you. So just to I'm going to walk through the process with you guys today. For those of you that have not applied for a hemp producer or handler license, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that process and what you're going to need to successfully apply for a hemp license in Idaho. So first things first, interested applicants that are going to be submitting an application, you're going to go through a process where you're going to create an account online with us. That account is going to allow you access to the application which you're intending to apply for. So if you're intending to apply for a producer, you want to cultivate hemp, you can do it on there. Those of you that want to process or manufacture, you'll be able to do the same. So on that account, also, you'll be able to manage your inspections. So those of you that are going to be producing will have that ability to log in and manage your inspection account. Also, for those applicants must fill out application in its entirety. So those of you, we cannot accept a application that's not fully complete. So if you're missing information, if you're missing your maps, your varieties, those things are going to prevent you from being able to successfully apply. All background checks to be submitted to ISDA are going to have to be within the last 60 days. So you're going to have to go through, get a fingerprint-based background check. Once you've gotten that background check, you're going to be able to apply. And as long as there is no felony, drug, narcotic charges within the last 10 years, you'll be able to move forward with the application process. All applicants must be 18 years of age or older in order to apply. So if you're under the age of 18, you cannot apply for a hemp license of any kind. Lastly, applications for next calendar year. So for those of you for 2023, applications will open October 1st and then closes December 31st. The application window just closed January 31st. That doesn't mean you cannot apply. You can still apply at any time. However, there is going to be a late fee associated with that. We don't prorate the cost of the license or application fee with that. So for those of you applying for 2022, you could technically apply December 12th and still get a license for 2022. It's just going to cost you a late fee.
What's the fee?
The late fee is $250. So we'll get into that just a little bit here.
Do you give a deal for people who just learned on the 4th?
No, just because we started this process November 1st. But great question. All right, so just to kind of familiarize yourself a little bit with the process, as I mentioned, you guys are going to create an online account. That online account is going to be where you kind of manage and maintain everything through that online account. To access that online account, you're going to access our website. Our website is agri.idaho.gov. You're going to log in and you'll see here on the left-hand side of the screen, you're going to see something that says hemp. You can access that on the main banner of our website, or if you go under inspections down on the bottom is also hemp. All three of those options will get you to where you need to go. So once you've accessed the hemp portion of our website, there's going to be some different options for you on the left-hand side. You're going to have Idaho rules governing hemp. So you're going to have the Idaho statute, the House bill, the state plan that we submitted to USDA, hemp rulemaking, any updates that we apply for hemp are on there. Our hemp license holders, hemp resources, frequently asked questions. Anytime we get a question asked, we will add it to our frequently asked questions list. So if you do have questions, we'd all encourage you to reference or review our frequently asked questions section and see if somebody has already asked that question. Also, background check resources. Idaho State Police does a fingerprint-based background check, or you can go through an FBI-based fingerprint background check. There's also something known as FBI channelers that you can work with. We've heard that they're a little bit more prompt in being able to work with you. So if you're in a hurry, all those resources are available on our website under the background check resources. So if you are hoping to access the hemp application, there's some pop-down windows here. There's a hemp license timeline. It's going to kind of lay out the process for you. It's going to walk you through, okay, I applied, now what? And it's going to walk you through the process from beginning to end, what you could expect as you work with ISDA. There's also the hemp fees and costs. So it is $100 to apply. That's your application fee. If you are approved, it's $500 for a producer's license. If you're wanting to handle, it's $1,000. It's a $250 late fee to apply outside the window and $250 for any sort of modification that you do after you've been approved for your license. I'm sorry, one more time. So on the bottom here, you have your two options here. There's a create an account option and a login option. So if you're creating an account, you're going to access the website here, you're going to log in, and it's going to walk you through the screen. So we're going to do that real quick. So if you are new and you're going to apply, you're going to access the website, you're going to create an account. That's going to take you to a screen where you're going to put in your password and your email address and verify you're creating an account with the Department of Agriculture. So once you put your information in, did you skip one?
Yeah, sorry.
You're good. So once you put your information in, I think that was the next one, yeah. It's going to send you a confirmation email. You're going to verify your email that you are intending to sign up. And go ahead, Maddie. What that looks like, you're going to receive a verification email. It's going to say click here to verify. You're going to click to verify. It's going to take you to this screen. It's going to give you a whole bunch of options of stuff that you want to log into or sign into. You're going to select industrial hemp, and then that's going to take you to a sign-in screen. Once you've been redirected to that sign-in screen, you sign in. You've now gained access to our main hemp program that will allow you to access the applications. This is where you're going to be managing your accounts from. When you request regulatory sampling, when you want to print your inspections, when you want to make payments, everything is going to be done through this online portal here. So if you were to click application, you'll see here that there's two options, and we'll walk through both options. The first option is going to be the producer option. So on here, you'll note too, it's a $100 application fee payments. If when you are applying, for whatever reason, something was incomplete on your application, it is denied and sent back to you, you can make those amendments and send them back in at no cost. It's not going to charge you again. And remember what I said, as long as you're not approved, you're not going to be charged a modification fee. You'll be able to make those amendments and resubmit. So then you're going to access the producer application. And it's going to bring you up with this window. The first portion of information that we're going to get from you is your business information. So that's going to be what business type. If you're an individual, a cooperative, a business, an LLC, you'll be able to select those options. Then you're going to enter your business name, and your address, your city, your zip code, your county, and your EIN number if you have one. We do have a list on our website of labs. We are not endorsing any labs by any means. USDA provides a full list of acceptable labs that are allowable for use. What we have done is gone through and called and talked to all those labs to discover who would take samples from Idaho. And there's about 15 to 20 labs that said they would accept samples from Idaho. As long as the labs are ISO 17025 accredited, you guys can select them as your lab that you're wanting to work with. As of December 31st of this year, the labs will have to be DEA accredited and ISO 17025 accredited. So once you've moved past to that part, you're gonna be able to put your contact information into your application. Your contact information is gonna ask you if you are a key participant, if you are a primary or an additional. The primary key participants are gonna be the people that we work with and communicate primarily.
What exactly do we need to send the material to the lab? What are they testing?
So that's a great question. So the question was, what are we sending to the lab? So we are going to work with the lab of your choice. When you're putting your lab on your application, that is the lab that we will be working with when we come out to pull regulatory samples. So approximately 35 days before you guys as producers are harvesting, you will log into your account and you'll request sampling. We will then make arrangements, we'll contact you, we'll come out, we're gonna pull samples, everything's based on acreage. So samples, 1 to 10 acres is a 1-to-1 ratio. After that, it kind of moves into like a formula based on the total amount of acres that you guys are growing. So 1 acre is gonna be 1 sample. And then we take that sample, we submit it to the lab that you guys are working with. That lab is gonna send us the copies of your results. If you meet the threshold of acceptable THC, we will then issue an approval for you to distribute that product. And you'll be able to do it, you'll be able to access a copy of your inspection and all that through this online portal. So once you've been given approval, you're now free to distribute the hemp product. Once we have pulled a regulatory sample, you have to harvest within 30 days. If you do not harvest within that 30 days, we'll have to resample. So you want to really try to key this into knowing exactly when you're planning on harvesting. So as you're filling out your information, you have your name, your phone numbers, your email address, and then this is going to be the portion where you upload your background check. So the background check is going to be the results of which FBI or ISP issue you. You're going to take those and you're going to upload them to your application. What that process looks like over here on the right-hand side, you can see it's a Word document, a PDF, however you guys prefer. You're just going to drag and drop it in there. It's going to give you a check mark and say, yep, it was uploaded. Once you've seen that, you just hit the close button and then close out of the contact page. So then that brings you to the lot information here. So what that's going to look like, you're going to select the intended use. If it's for seed, floral, grain, etc., you're going to select that and then follow the process through. If you're intending to seek organic certification, if you're planning on growing transplants and what those are going to look like. If you're growing transplants for on-farm usage, you're going to enter the initial growing location and the final growing location. That's still constituted as 1 lot, but we do have to account for both. If you are growing transplants for wholesale, you'll select the wholesale option. You'll then work through the process. You're going to put the lot name, whatever you guys decide to name the lot of hemp that you're growing, the variety in which you're intending to grow, and then the growing area status, whether you're leasing or owning the land. From there, you're going to select the growing area if you're growing indoors or outdoors, and what the acreage or square footage looks like, the address of that location, city, state, zip, and then the latitude and longitude, the geospatial coordinates for that. Once you've entered that information, you're going to be able to upload a map of your growing location. It's important to note on the right-hand side, the contiguous location and lots. What constitutes as 1 lot? 1 lot is just 1 contiguous variety or strain that you're growing in 1 area. Anything that breaks that up, such as a road, trees, fence, then you're starting to tier on having multiple lots. More than 1 lot in a greenhouse is multiple lots. The moment you put another variety in there, it can no longer just be 1 lot. So there is this helpful document. If you are accessing the application, these blue question marks, you can click those. It's going to pull those up for you. You can take a look. Those are also available on our resource tab on our main portion of our website. So after you've gone through, as I mentioned, and filled out your application, you're just going to drag and drop your map that you've created with your producer application. It's going to let you know and confirm that we've received that. So as I had mentioned about those that are wishing to transplant, on-farm usage, you're going to list your initial growing location and then the final growing location. You'll notice that the name, the variety are the same. The square footage and acreage is going to change or be different. The address is going to be the same. So if you have 3 lots that you're wanting to transplant, you're going to have 6 entries. It's still only 3 lots. So you'll see the 6 entries as being there. Still, just remember it's 1 lot. So you've gone through and entered all of your lot information. The program isn't going to let you proceed until you've put in all applicable information. So once you've done so, you're going to click the save button. And you've now completed your application. So once you've completed your application, it's going to send us an email and let us know you've applied. Your application will move into the applied stage. You'll be able to log in and access online the invoice, pay the $100 application fee via online, or you can print out your invoice and mail in a check. Just to kind of give you guys an example, this is the map example that we have that we use. This has got several different examples on there to kind of show you the different ways you can label different things. So if your storage building or your greenhouse or your fields, you're going to want to box them out. You're going to want to say, this is the field in which I am growing. And then you're going to label it. You're going to say, this is field 1A, and it is at this GPS location, and it's approximately 5 acres, and it's outdoor field. And then as long as you have your name and your address and your contact information on that map, this would constitute as a completed map. If for those of you that have applied and had your map sent back to you, it's missing information. It's either just got a circle or something drawn on it. There's no other information. It's got to have these tags with it. It's got to be labeled, and we got to know who it belongs to. So on the other end of that spectrum, we went from the producer application. Now we kind of move into what a handler application looks like. So for those of you that are wanting to produce or manufacture hemp, it's not quite as long as an application process. So you're going to come in same way, log in the same way you would for your other account, select application, and then select the handler option. Once you've selected the handler option, you're going to enter your business name the same exact way you would for a producer application.
This is for anybody that's an employee of a company that's working with?
No, so this is for key participants. So key participant is an owner or somebody that has a financial interest or gain from the product or from whatever activity they're doing. And also executive level employees. If you have managers or supervisors, they don't need to be listed on the application. We're strictly looking for the key participants that are either the owners or the executive level employees running the company. So you're going to go through, you're going to fill out your contact information the exact same way you would, and you'll upload your background check the exact same you would with the producer application. So your only difference here, instead of entering lot information, you're going to be entering your facility information. You're going to select your intended usage, what you're doing at that facility. If you're intending to seek organic certification, the name of your facility, the location with the address, city, state, zip, and then the geospatial coordinates along with that. You're also going to upload a facility map. So this is kind of an example of what a facility map would look like that's acceptable. So if you have your location ID, what you're doing, your GPS coordinates, this is a contract manufacturing facility that's approximately 26,000 square feet. You can see where they outlined exactly where their facility's at. We know who it belongs to. It has their name and their address on there. This map would be acceptable. So upon application completion, once you've gone through, so the process works, you apply, you pay for your application fee. Once we've received your application fee, we'll begin processing your application. If there's any issues at that point, we reach out to you so we can get those corrected. Remember, your applications have to be completed 100%. Once we've approved that, you're going to be able to, it'll notify you to log in. Your license is available, log in for the next steps. You'll log in back into your account and you'll be able to pay your license fee. Remember, producers is 500, handlers is 1,000. Once you've paid that fee, we will then issue you a license. We will activate it. Your license is now active from the date in which it was activated up until December 31st. Once you get to that point, this is what example of what your license is going to look like. So in this case, this is a hemp producing license, and it has your license number on it, the date it was issued, and the date which it expires. The common issues that we've seen so far in applications is incomplete maps, screenshots of Google or whatever the maps they have on their phone, and they just upload it to their application. We need additional information on those maps, and they need to be labeled correctly. Out-of-state background checks or name-based background checks. We cannot accept a background check if you went to Oregon or Nevada or Utah and got a background check. We cannot accept that. It has to be an Idaho State Police or a FBI-based, fingerprint-based background check. Not knowing the growing location. There's a lot of people that are eager to apply, and that's fantastic. They just don't know exactly where they're going to grow yet, or they don't know exactly what type of variety they're going to grow yet. They can start the process, but remember, we cannot complete your application until it is 100% filled out. GPS coordinates incorrect. Every application we will go through and verify the GPS coordinates that you put on the application match up with your map. As long as they match up, we can check those boxes that everything is correct and located exactly where you said it was going to be located. And then we can continue on with processing your application. So just to kind of rewind a little bit, on our website, everything is going to be available online. You'll be able to manage your applications, your license, your inspections, your sampling results. All that information will be available to you on this online portal. To access that, you access our Hemp homepage. And for those of you that haven't created an account, it's going to be the giant blue button. For those of you that have already created your account, you're just hoping to log in and manage your account, it's going to be the giant green button on there. So you'll be able to log in and pay any fees or any outstanding balances. If you want to go back and look at previous licenses that you've had, as long as you're using the same login account, you can use that to log in and look at a previous year's information which you submitted. The nice thing too, that if you do plan to grow for 2023, you log into the same account, you'll be able to pull up your application and hit history and fill in all your forms again with your previous year's information. So that's that account. You don't want to lose your login information. That's what you're going to use kind of here on out to manage your Hemp account. So that's kind of the process in which we walk through for those of you hoping to apply. If you guys do have questions, or again, if you have an application that's been denied, as long as you make those modification fees and we don't move forward, you'll be able to make those with no additional fees. Any modifications made once your license has been issued will warrant in a modification fee of $250.
So is this the same process the other states go to, or is this just specific to Idaho? Is it that strenuous for Montana and other states, or?
Yeah, so the question was, are you talking about the amount of information we're collecting?
Yeah, in the application, is it the same in Montana? I mean, that seems kind of intense.
No, that's a great question. So the question is, the information that ISEA is collecting, is it more strenuous than what other states are doing? No. Actually, one thing for those of you producing, once you are approved and received your license, you're required to check in with your local FSA office. They're going to ask you for the exact same information. You're going to be able to take your application and the information you provided and hand it to them, and they're going to be able to check it off and say, okay, you're good to go. If you were to access any other state's application, you're going to see it's going to ask you the same questions, same information. If it was a state that's being regulated by USDA, they're going to ask you to log into their website and put in the exact same information.
And I'll just stand for, because you may look like the bad guy up here, but the USDA is the one who you should be getting upset about, because all state plans have to be approved by the USDA. The USDA is the one who said you have to use them. So in Montana, we used to not have to do background checks. We have to do them this year. You know, the fees are really where the state has some leniency, at least in our state, because they have to pay for the program. They have to pay for the people to implement these plans. So I know you may want to beat up on the state of Idaho, but like take it up further. It's the USDA that is really has these strenuous rules. And that's where, you know, the 2022-2023 Farm Bill, getting legislative language so that we can change the law so the USDA doesn't worry about these things. So he's not the bad guy in this situation.
I wasn't saying that.
No, I appreciate it. And thank you for that.
What's your fee? Is it $800?
Yeah, we're actually $850 in Montana.
So we're cheaper than Montana.
Yeah. So one thing I was going to ask you is if someone comes in and their application, they say, I want to grow 50 acres, and then they change it and say, actually, I'm going to grow, you know, 250 acres. Is that a fee, a $250 fee to change acres?
If the license is already approved, it would be a fee just based on that. If it was something that was in the applied state, you still have access to log in and adjust that information. So I would encourage you, if you are applying, have the information ready to go to the best of your knowledge to prevent that from happening.
If it goes the other way, you have to make a change. You say I'm gonna do 200 acres, and then it didn't pencil out and you planted 50, you have to pay to change that.
You would still need to pay the modification fee to adjust that, yeah.
So this is a yearly fee?
These are yearly fees. So each year, for this year, our application window just closed January 31st. You can still apply for a license at any time for 2022. 2023's application window opens September 1st and it closes December 31st. During that period, you'll apply for your license for 2023. Your license is only good from January 1st to December 31st.
You have to be re-fingerprinted every year?
That's a great question. The question was, do you need to be fingerprinted every year? Yes, you have to have a current background check within the last 60 days of the time you apply.
It's the USDA, it's not Idaho.
I don't change that, the USDA, we got to vote for.
If you would probably
That's
want
a
to.
great question. We have a hemp exemption that we're putting forward. And so we're getting Tester, McConnell, Daines, congressmen to get language into the Farm Bill. So as soon as I have that ready in the platform, you guys write your congressmen, write your legislators, and advocate for that.
Will that be on your website? Will we get
Yeah.
the updates?
It literally is launching on Monday. I
It's not
was
like they're
hoping to
gonna
have it
tell us.
ready today, but we're just a couple days behind. But it's called the hemp exemption. And it's language specifically saying no background check, no fees, you know, all that good stuff. Let's stick to visual inspections. Let's stick to what are we harvesting instead of low risk. So these guys they have to do what the law tells them to do. They have to do what USDA tells them to do. And so hopefully we can change those laws. Sorry.
We can still apply to grow for this year.
You can still apply to grow for this year. Monday was the end of that window where you wouldn't have to pay a late fee. You can apply all the way up until December 29th for 2022 if you wanted to.
What about hauling it to Montana? Do we have to have a transport license?
So that's the question was, do you have to have a transport license? No, there is no transport license with ISDA. Whether you're a producer or handler, we would encourage whatever license that we issue you, we would encourage you to carry that with you. If you are a producer and you're moving hemp, we would encourage you to carry a copy of your inspection, your license that you have with us, your lab results. That's just going to mitigate the amount of questions that you may get from law enforcement.
You need one in Idaho and Montana.
So Montana has their own state regulations. If you're licensed in Idaho, you're free to move it about Idaho and move it, distribute it wherever you need to. With Montana, I believe as long as they're licensed and you're taking it to another license holder, you should be good to go.
Can we actually look for your license when you contract? That final will say what is your state license. So the state of Montana just make sure that we're working with growers who went through the process.
And a lot of the stuff people might already complete it. As we can share as well. So that kind of information you're working with, like your provider, you might just be able to send out with the details of your equipment.
Yeah, building off that, Casey, we're using a third-party trucking company and we have a handling license. Does that cover the truck driver that is transporting the material?
I'll refer that question to Chanel. Chanel, are you on the line?
We may have to, Chanel might be able to unmute herself. We just said it on the mic.
Yeah, Chanel, if you would like to unmute yourself.
Chanel, can you hear us?
In the meantime, meantime, Casey, another question. Can you talk about the sampling requirements for hemp handlers? Let's say,
Yeah.
for instance, a company like Hemp is bringing material from IND Hemp to Idaho. What are the
Sure.
sampling requirements?
That's a great question. So Maddie's question was, what are the sampling requirements for handlers? So everybody that does have a license within Idaho is going to go through a inspection. Those of you that are producing, you're going to go through regulatory sampling, which we come out to your place and pull regulatory samples, submit them to the lab. For those of you that are handling, we're going to come out, we're going to verify your records that you've been purchasing hemp from a license holder, that you're distributing accordingly. And then in the event that there is a reason for us to come out and sample, whether it's oil or fiber, we will then sample accordingly and submit those to a lab of our choice and then notify you of the results.
But what happens if it's, that THC is too high in your plant? What do you do?
That's a great question. So the question was, what is, if the THC is over the you're talking about from a producer, 0.3% THC? There's a couple different options we can work with you on. The first option would be you can choose to have the lab retest the retention sample and see if the results come back updated. Another option would be to remediate the hemp. So you can either have it made into a biomass and then we can resample it and submit it to the lab of your choice. Or you can remediate by separating the leaves, the floral components, the stalks, and then distributing the stalks. The last option would be disposal of the crop.
I think we have Chanel unmuted as well.
Oh,
Chanel, can you hear us?
Chanel.
Consider combining remediation since you are removing the flower.
I did unmute Chanel.
so the biomass would be
Okay.
we were going.
Can you guys hear
route,
me?
have to be harvested and put into a container labeled
Yes.
biomass for remediation purposes, and then we would have access those containers in whichever you put the biomass into.
But you're not harvesting biomass, you're harvesting seed.
So make sure I understand your question. You're asking if you were just harvesting seed and there was the sample was too high.
So you take your sample of this box at 8 inches and it comes back hot.
Yeah.
But you're going to harvest it with a combine, so you're
Yeah.
physically threshing it.
As long as you're removing the floral components, you can still distribute the stalk, the leaves, and the seed.
And so the seed can go into a grain hopper and can make its way to Montana.
Correct. Yes. Just the floral components would have to be disposed of.
Chanel's looking into it.
And the stock components is still be.
Yes, sir. Yep.
I believe we do have Chanel on the line.
Guys, we're gonna do a test. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Ah, great. Well, thank you for accommodating me. I'm sorry I'm not there in person. It's the busy season here in Boise. I wanted to answer the question about transportation just a little bit. So we are in a very different place than we were prior to House Bill 126 being passed. That gave a lot of clarity to us, to ISP, Department of Transportation, the governor's office, everyone included. So truckers are not required to have their own licenses. They just need to haul for an entity that does have a license. Sorry, Maddie, can you pick it up now? I was gonna say, I'll just cut to the chase. Truckers do not need to have a license. They need to haul for someone who does have a license.
Thank you. Heard you loud and clear there.
All right.
Any other questions?
You said when the sample is pulled, the state decides which lab it goes to?
Only if we were sampling at a handling facility, yes. We would work with a lab that's ISO 17025 and DEA accredited. You'll notice on the handler application, you're not required to list a lab that you want to work with. Sampling is going to be based on the inspection, if that makes sense. If there was a reason there was some concern, we would then pull samples. For the producing side, yes, we'll work with the lab that you guys choose. One of the things we'll do is we'll verify that the lab you list on your application is at least ISO 17025 accredited for this year. Remember, December 31st, they have to be both DEA and ISO 17025 accredited to legally test.
Are there any Idaho labs that are in the process that you know
To my knowledge, there is currently no labs in Idaho. There's, yeah, the labs are kind of located sporadically throughout the US, California, Utah, Oregon, to name just kind of a few off the top of my head.
I was gonna say Idaho Labs has a California branch that will receive samples, I believe.
And I'm not sure they may or may not be on our website. Our website, again, we don't endorse any labs. We just wanted to make this as easy on you guys as possible. And it went through and identified labs that said they would take samples from Idaho growers and that are ISO 17025 and DEA accredited already. Any other questions?
Thank you, Casey.
All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Okay, hey, everybody. First off, I just want to start off by saying thank you. Thank you to Tim Corney for letting us use his space, helping organize this event. It would not have been possible without Tim. So thanks, Tim. Let's give him a round of applause. I'd like to thank the team from IND Hemp for coming all the way from Montana. The knowledge that IND Hemp has been hard-earned, a lot of ups and downs and lessons, and it's great to have people like Ben and Morgan and the whole IND Hemp team here. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with us today.
So it was Tim and Maddie and the Hemp Texture crew in the Thousand Springs that really pushed for 3 years to get a legal program so you guys can put it on base in Idaho.
I'm going to keep it short and sweet here because I'm sure there's some more questions out there. I do want to leave time for questions. My name is Maddie Mead, and I'm the founder and CEO of Hempitecture. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the end uses of industrial hemp. So we've talked about how it's grown, some of the separation processes called decortication. We've talked about the licensing process, which I did go through that licensing process. On the handling side, it was relatively pain-free. I would say the only part that was painful was when I got my fingerprints taken and the police officer remarked I had very chunky fingers and it was difficult to get a good print from me. So that was the hardest part about that process. And Morgan's exactly right. This is, coming from the USDA, and I really do believe that Idaho Department of Agriculture is doing the best job to make this an easy process for the state. And as the 50th state to legalize industrial hemp, we have an opportunity to learn from some of the challenges and setbacks that have occurred in other states. So next slide. So I'm going to introduce Hempitecture, our business that's based here in Idaho. We're a materials company and we specialize in what we call truly sustainable materials. We primarily specialize in building materials, insulation, talk a little bit about our path and what we're doing here in Idaho. We're soon to manufacture materials, but we also distribute building materials across the United States by importing them from countries where industrial hemp is prevalent, and they are using these manufacturing technologies. Folks have been walking around here checking out the samples that IND Hemp have brought. We've also brought some samples of our hemp wool insulation, which you can see here in a 2x4 wall. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Next slide. So just to kind of take a step back and assume, let's all start from the same level. There's a few constituents to the industrial hemp plant. You have the inner wooden core that's called the hurd or the shiv, and then there is the outer fiber. That outer fiber can be used for things like textiles. I am wearing hemp pants and a hemp jacket today. The inner wooden core can be used for things like animal bedding, can be used for building materials like hempcrete. We've also brought some samples of an OSB replacement that is using the wooden core of the industrial hemp stock. So there's many uses, but we are focused very much so on the building materials sector. So we started off in a very different place from where we are today. We started off with what's called cast in place hempcrete. Cast in place hempcrete is a unique and niche building strategy in the United States. It's not a product, it is a system. It's a method of building. Hempcrete requires the inner wooden core of the industrial hemp stock with a specialized blend of limestone, and it's mixed with water. And what results is a carbon capturing building material that's 100% fireproof highly insulating, vapor permeable, a lot of benefits to hempcrete. This photo was taken some years ago, and I believe that the seedlings there are not even industrial hemp because at this point in time, it wasn't legal. So I think that's maybe CNAF. Next slide. On-site construction with hempcrete is certainly a labor of love. We really do believe in the potential of hempcrete. We've built over 20 projects across the United States using hempcrete, but my gosh, it is remarkably labor intensive. It's basically using temporary form boards cast around a structural frame, tamping it, and literally building the building wall mass, layer by layer, inch by inch. You quite literally handle every single material or every single inch of material that goes into the wall system. The results are, however, incredibly beautiful. The feeling in a hempcrete house is remarkable. Acoustic comfort, thermal comfort, super long lasting. This is from a building project that we recently completed in Austin, Texas, called the Minka. Next slide. This project is kind of an example of hempcrete at sort of its highest and best use. The timber frame that you see here is a 350-year-old Japanese post and beam frame that was disassembled in Japan, transported to a ranch in Austin, Texas, rebuilt by a team of Japanese timber framers who use no power tools. And then everything that you see that is white is actually hempcrete, and we installed hempcrete around this timber frame. So this is not necessarily at this point in time, a mass appeal building technique. I mean, when we're working with a 350-year-old timber frame from Japan, you can imagine that it's probably an upper end project, but that's why we've kind of had a change in our path. We certainly do believe in hempcrete. The use of core, hurd or shiv from the hemp plant is great in hempcrete. There's building block potential that's coming out, but maybe soon to come to the United States. Thanks. And that's why we really pivoted to a different building material. And so you may have heard, if you've seen the news, about the hemp legislation in Idaho, that Hempitecture is building a materials factory here in Idaho. That materials factory is designed to produce our flagship product, hemp wool insulation. It's a healthy plant-based insulation that absorbs carbon dioxide and makes homes more energy efficient. So everyone here has touched fiberglass or rock wool. You are not soon to forget that because it's an itchy, abrasive material. We're essentially substituting the fibers for plant fibers versus glass fiber. It's made in a very similar process to fiberglass. However, we believe that industrial hemp makes a great feedstock for that material because the material feedstock can offset up to 9.8 tons of CO2 per acre. Kind of our motto is that a healthier home, which we believe hemp wool is a healthy material, means happier people and therefore a more sustainable planet. As I mentioned before, you're not soon to forget that time that you were tricked into pulling, fiberglass out of a crawl space, and it sticks to your skin. It's abrasive. Hemp wool is safe to touch, it's sustainable, and of course, because it's 92% hemp fiber, it's plant-based. One of the benefits of hemp wool, and when we think about this compared to hempcrete, it installs like other products. It installs like rock wool, it installs like fiberglass, whereas hempcrete is a system. It's an approach to building. You really have to, consider hempcrete from day one on your project site. So hemp wool really plugs well into how we build conventionally. And we've seen growing demand for this product since we've been importing it mostly through France by way of Quebec to our 2 warehouses, Tennessee, Salt Lake City. And with this growing demand, we said, we need to utilize the supply chain that's emerging here. And actually, in part, that was part of the inspiration of having this meeting here. We've seen what I&D Hemp team is doing in Montana, and we want Idaho to be a part of that. We view this as an agricultural opportunity. But for now, we'll buy from Montana, and we see a not so distant future where we're buying from 10 miles away versus 10 hours away. So this is a shot of our manufacturing facility that's under construction, taken just a few days ago. It's behind the Flying J there on 93 and 84. It kind of sticking out like a sore thumb a little bit. One of the bigger buildings in the area. And it is being built by a developer who's building a number of these buildings. So we're going to be occupying about a quarter of this building. We've already purchased the insulation manufacturing equipment. It's being built in Italy right now. We'll soon be in 10 containers heading across the Atlantic, landing in Houston, coming up to Jerome. This is super exciting because not only is this, a big opportunity for our business, but we think it's an opportunity for Idaho farmers. We think it's an opportunity for farmers across the region. And this is the only facility of this kind in the United States. If all goes according to plan, fingers crossed for us, we'll be operational by Q3. And of course, it's in Jerome. So just to talk a little bit about the process of making this product. Now, our focus, of course, is hemp wool insulation, but because it is a non-woven equipment line, we can make a number of non-woven products. Think packaging for thermal insulation, think automotive or acoustic lining. There's a lot of potential for this non-woven process, but when it comes to our insulation product, it relies on hemp fiber, a binder fiber, a retardant, and that equals hemp insulation. So just to kind of walk you through the process here, one of the very important steps between growing industrial hemp and harvesting it and us being able to use it is that decortication step. So, hopefully after this meeting, we feel inspired to plant some acres, start small, get used to this, and maybe some of that residual straw is going to Montana. What we need is the processed bales. We need decorticated bales of fiber to a certain spec. I believe it was Ben that mentioned the grade of fiber that we need is actually a bit lower than the grade of fiber that makes my pants or my jacket right now. It can be shorter, it can be a little coarser. Of course, the finer the better. But what we get at our loading dock is the bales of hemp fiber. They're loaded into a bale opener. There's a process that opens the fibers, meaning it pulls and parses out the fibers, makes them more lofty, voluminous. The lofty fibers are then air laid into a mat. That mat is then bonded and it's cut into different widths and dimensions. So most people in the United States build 16 on center or 2 foot on center, 2x4s, 2x6s. We can make a product that's going to fit into your wall cavity, no matter your stud spacing.
So is it rodent resistant?
Yes, that's a good question. There is a natural rodent resistance to the material. Here's if we'll just click play, we'll see if this works. There may be terrible stock footage music to this. Okay, so this is just a view of some of our trials using fiber that was actually grown in Alberta. It's coming down the essentially the conveyor belt line. This is before the oven. Basically, if I had put my hand on that mat right there, the insulation would essentially collapse. We're trapping air into it. Now you can see I put my hand on there, and it is a semi-rigid, flexible batt material. It goes through a cutting unit, as I mentioned before. This is exiting the oven, and once it's cut, it can be stacked, palletized, and hopefully off to a job site near you.
Does it have an R value?
Yeah, so right now the R value is about R 3.69 per inch. We're looking at other ways of improving that. We're looking at other fibers that we think could complement that. We're really in the early phases of this, and we're excited to have this equipment for accelerating our research and development of creating not just hemp insulation, but other products that are similar. Imagine continuous insulation that goes on the exterior of your house, carpet underlayment. There's a number of products that we can make with this non-woven line. So just lastly here, there's a guillotine chopper that's chopping it in a latitudinal direction. You don't want to get your hand caught in there. And you'll peel apart the sides here. You can see a crisp, clean cut edge. This fiber actually is a little less clean than what would be standard. You can see there is some hurd in there, probably about 85 to 90% clean. Question in the back?
When you're up and running at your old, how many ton are you gonna be able to process?
So there is a lot of capacity that exists in our manufacturing line. We think we'll be at a small fraction of that. We could produce about 5 million square feet of insulation per year, about 1 ton an hour if we were running at full tilt. We're not going to be at that level to start out. Next slide. Start. So why hemp-based building materials? Well, of course, there's a sustainability ethos to this. This is actually from a life cycle analysis that was done on the product in which we're currently importing. Crazy enough, the hemp fiber is actually grown in France, shipped across the Atlantic Ocean. The product is made in Quebec. It's then shipped to us. We sell it to customers all across the United States. Even with all of those elements, there is what's called a biogenic carbon uptake. And what that really means is that for every 1 meter squared of hemp wool at 5.5 inches deep, there is a carbon storage of 1 kilogram CO2 equivalent per that 1 meter squared. If you compare that to rock wool, which is a pretty conventional material that has a lot of uses and is a beneficial product, but there is a 4.6 kilogram emissions from rock wool. So we think that down the line, there's going to be a lot of incentivization of lower embodied carbon building materials, homes that are more sustainable. And we also see potential for this, not just in the residential sector, but commercial sector, a lot of different applications. So yeah, hemp wool, it's a plant-based material for a more sustainable tomorrow, and it's happening right here in Idaho. We're really, really excited about the potential of this as not just a job creator, but a new industry here in Idaho, and really 2 new industries, the birth of the nonwovens industry, as well as the start of the hemp industry here. So, what we're doing in Jerome would not be possible without a lot of people that have been supporting us. We've gotten some support from the Idaho Department of Commerce. Not long after we adopted that hemp legislation, we received a grant to work with the University of Idaho. So we've got a team of students up there in Moscow doing some research on our product. We've been supported by Southern Idaho Economic Development. And we're really looking forward to being a part of the community in Southern Idaho and Jerome in particular. So yeah, so my name is Matty Mead, founder and CEO of Hempitecture. Feel free to grab us after here with co-founder Tommy, Joni, Max is somewhere in the back. Happy to answer any questions you may have. And I will open up the floor here for questions, not just for myself, questions for Tim, questions for the IND Hemp team, or Casey if he is still around.
So when you say you're taking a bale and putting it in your machine after all, that's not a bale straight from the field, is it?
Correct. It is not straight from the field. It has to go through that step of decortication.
So who's doing that?
IND Hemp.
So we're gonna ship it from here to you and then ship it back to you.
For now.
If it all works, then we'll build the next one right here.
So we have to really see the demand in this area. I mean, Morgan can certainly tell you that the capital expenditure investment for a decortication facility is significant. Before you build that, you have to know that you're going to be able to have a source of the stalks here, the straw here to process and turn into the fiber. So it starts here today. I mean, this is why we're having this. We're envisioning a future where Idaho farmers are not sending it to Montana, and we're working with IND Hemp and leaning on their agronomy experience and their processing experience to really develop a supply chain here in Southern Idaho.
You could be sending it to Canada and then back to.
Yes.
You could be buying it from France and then you get back. And
Yes.
then as they are now.
No. Any other questions?
What's the cost?
Yeah, so after many years of traveling all over the place, building hempcrete homes, we've kind of put a rest to that chapter. We launched a training program where we've trained over 60 people who have come quite literally from across the world to learn with us about how to work with hempcrete because it is such a specialized building material. So we've trained those people to go out and build homes. And we realized a long time ago that if this side of the industry is to scale, if hempcrete building materials are going to actually be a thing, we can't be the only company building out there. And maybe 5 or 6 years ago, the things that I would have thought were trade secrets or things that I wanted to keep, close to the chest are now things that we happily will share with other people because it's important. We view it as a means to get further faster by sharing the knowledge that we've been fortunate to acquire.
What's the cost comparison to like fiberglass insulation?
Yeah, great question. Well, you can imagine certainly with the material coming from overseas, 2 to 3x. The Idaho facility really is a means to lowering that cost and striving for probably not cost parity to fiberglass insulation because it is so inexpensive, but a comparable material like rock wool. It may not be your number one, might not be your number two, but by growing the supply chain here in Idaho, you're cutting out some of the transportation costs. We think that there is the potential for cost parity to materials like rock wool.
A question we got online, Maddie, is capital investment still needed, or are we simply waiting for home growers to develop first?
Yeah, so we actually are in the midst of a fundraise right now, and we utilize a pretty unique and exciting format called Regulation CF. Basically what that means is that anyone that is excited about what we are doing can go online and invest a small amount or a very large amount, if you so like, into hempatecture. You go to wefunder.com/hempatecture. You'll learn all about our business plan, our facility in Idaho, and that fundraise is soon to be closing. So probably have about 20-25 days until that round is over.
Health-wise compared with your regular installation?
If you came to our office, you would see that we have a stud wall all the way around our office with hemp wool exposed, no drywall on top of it. You would never do that with a fiberglass insulation. It's safe to touch, non-toxic, no VOCs. So we do view it as the epitome of a healthy building material.
Besides U of I, do you guys work with any other students? Are you guys doing any other research that maybe students like myself can get involved in?
Yes, well, we are doing some other research outside of the University of Idaho. We were accepted to a fellowship program at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, which is in Knoxville, Tennessee. My business partner, Tommy, will be representing us there to kind of develop our product roadmap. So that's a Department of Energy funded program. So going back to that idea of incentives coming down the line, we really do think that there is a interest at the highest level, the federal government, to accelerate the adoption of these materials. In terms of other research and development opportunities, maybe on a statewide level, the iGEM program is a great opportunity, and it's the Idaho Global Entrepreneurial Mission. That involves basically a grant application process, teaming up with University of Idaho and getting funding to continue that work. We may be approaching an iGEM solicitation perhaps with some of the University of Idaho agricultural extension centers to look at growing industrial hemp here in Idaho and researching that. But I'd be happy to talk more with you after about the opportunities.
Awesome, thank you.
Now your hemp concrete or hempcrete, is that a liquid or?
The best way that I can describe it after it's mixed is it's kind of like wet wood chips. So you take a powderized lime binder, which is actually manufactured here in Idaho, and I'll give a shout out to Brian in the back from Hess Pumice. They are the manufacturer of the only hemp lime binder made in the United States, made in Malad City, which is pretty cool. You mix that with the dried hemp hurd and water, and the resulting material looks like wet wood chips. It's then placed into a formwork. So if you imagine a concrete form boarding system as rebar on center, this is like a
3D house builder.
There are people that are working on applications of industrial hemp and hempcrete for 3D printing materials, which is, I find super fascinating. It's not something that we've really been very focused on in recent time, but I think there definitely is potential there. Well, enough about hempatecture. If there's any other questions for Ben or Morgan while we have them here, I know that there was a lot of excitement, enthusiasm around the ag side of things. And that really is at the heart of why we're gathered here today, to share information so we can all take a measured approach to the hemp industry and really understand the risks, the challenges, the potential rewards. So If there are any other questions for Ben or Morgan, happy to have them back up here before we call today. I know there's gotta be more questions from these guys.
Any DOT questions? Well, it's simple, actually. Legislators in Idaho said that hemp is a legitimate farm commodity, potatoes or. That's how it is.
That's great news. And thank you for being a part of this and coming here and learning with us. And for those that weren't able to hear, I'll just reiterate. Idaho State Police Officer Stouse just said that legislators in Idaho have named industrial hemp as a commodity that is to be treated like other commodities that we grow here in Idaho, and Idaho State Police will approach it as such. But this is a great opportunity for us to all be here in the same room and learning together. So very excited about that.
Well, one thing I want to do, I'm ready to talk to all these. This gentleman, get your paperwork, it'll be moving. Make sure you have a bill of lading that states exactly what's in it, and you won't have a problem. If you don't have paperwork, you will have a problem.
Just to reiterate for those that are online, because we have a good number of people who are watching virtually. Randy from Boise just reiterated the importance of having the proper paperwork, especially when shipping and handling industrial hemp, because with that proper paperwork, you will not have problems, which nobody wants problems. So thanks, Randy. Well, I think we're coming to the end here. And so I just want to give one last thank you to Tim and the Thousand Springs Mill team for those cookies are outrageous, Tim. Those are delicious.
Are they gluten free? Are they gluten free?
I don't know.
I don't want to tell you.
Well, thanks everybody for taking the time out of your day to learn with us. Thanks to the press who's coming here to get the word out. Casey from Idaho Department of Agriculture, law enforcement, and yeah, looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you, Matt.
Yes, my pleasure.
Well, of course, I want to like, how looks like that.
How's what?
Bye, y'all.